All right, what's going on, everyone? This is Aiden Wood, mix and mastering here. Today I'm here to do a quick little drum producing tip, and it's something that really makes me feel like my drums are alive. And I think a lot of the time with house music, it can be a common thing to hear drums that sound very static, like there's not a lot of transients involved. Maybe they're super flattened, there's not a lot of variation in sound happening within them. And that's going to make it sound very stale, very computer like. But drums are supposed to be a very humanized thing. We want it to sound like someone's actually playing the drums. We want things to be slightly off the grid. We want the human feel to these drums. And so what I'm going to do here is talk about a couple ways that I like to really make my drums feel like they're coming alive, just to make them sound a little more unique. And again, make it sound like they weren't made on a computer, but they were made or played by someone actually live. So quickly we'll listen to our song here. We'll just give it a listen. We'll hear what we hear, and then I'll show you guys what the tip I'm going through is. Cool idea. The drums sound super full. I really like the melody that's going on here, but I think there's something we can do to just spice up the drums a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to our main hat layer. Again, I like to have sort of like a main hat and a main snare, and then I like to put on my percussion loops, my top loops, my no kick loops. That's kind of the way I like to do it. Start with the hat, start with the clap, and then throw the loops on to add the groove. But something I like to do to spice up the hats just a little bit is to change the velocity that's happening with our hat. If we just have the exact same one shot hitting every single time for our hats, it's going to sound good, but again, it's going to sound really static. So something I like to do, and it makes our drums sound a lot more alive, a lot less static, is I like to throw on this thing called Add Some Random. And so what I'm going to show you guys is exactly how it works. So when we throw on Add Some Random, my computer's just being really slow. Yeah, so when we throw on Add Some Random, let's listen to our closed hat here and hear what happens to it. So this is without the Add Some Random. It's a nice little just closed hat layer. Let's listen with the Add Some Random. So you're going to hear some changes there, right? You're hearing the different velocity happening to the sound of the close hat. And this is what makes our drums sound alive, right? Like if you imagine someone is playing the drums, they're not going to hit the hi-hat the exact same volume, the exact same velocity every single time. This is something that makes it sound more human. Like it almost is like someone is playing different sort of hits of the drum with their hands, like they would be playing the drums. And so what I like to do is I'll dial back this usually into like the 7 to 10 range, where it's sort of subtle, but it's adding some variation. Now listen. Maybe even bring it up a bit more. I can also add it to the open hat layer. So I'll bring it over here. So it'll go before. And if we listen to them together, it's just adding a little bit of variation to the velocity of our hat. And this is a very minor thing, but it's something that goes a long way, especially when you have sort of this main open hat that you've created. In this case, I've created with like a closed hat and an open hat. When you have something like this, it's gonna compound and it's gonna add a lot of interest to the drums itself. So this is one of the ways I like to look at making my drums a little bit more alive. Typically, I would do this a little earlier in the process of mixing my drums. Like I wouldn't do this at the end of the process like I'm doing here. But if you feel like near the end of your mix, you're missing something is still kind of boring about your drums, this is something that can be really fun to try because it adds a lot of life to the drums. Now, the last thing I'll add is I'm going to add a little bit of reverb to our drums. And what this is going to do is it's going to give our drums a bit of space, because for the most part, when you're throwing just drum samples down, a lot of these are coming in mono and they're going to sound great, but there's no space involved with those drums. They're not taking up any of the stereo width. They're all just coming right down the middle. So the way that I like to do it is when I'm making my sort of main snare and claps, what I'll do is with the close hat, which I'll normally pan to the left or the right side, is I'll throw a little bit of reverb, and then on my clap, which I'll also pan, is I'll throw a little bit of reverb as well. So for the closed hat here, let's throw on, let's say just like a bright room, for example. This is just an Ableton preset, and we'll dial it back pretty far. So for this one without, gives us a little tail there. Again, these are small things that you're going to vary subtly here in the context of the rest of the drums, but they're taking it a long way. They're adding space and they're adding life to the drums. So I'm cool with something like that there for our hat. Now we can do it for our side clap as well. Looks like we already have one over here on our right clap, so we can do one on our left clap too. Again, I'm trying to sort of not just use the same amounts on everything. You can see like I have different panning amounts for each thing. I don't want everything happening sort of the way a computer would make it exact and perfect. I want it to be sort of a little imperfect. So if we listen to our clap here, a bit of reverb. So now we just have a little tail there. And so now when we listen to our clap, we have some coming from this other one here. Listening context, and now with our hat. We're getting that variation with our hat now. And now we have a whole new added life to our drums. So if we listen, song. And something else you could do, guys, is you can throw it on your rides. Look, I already have add some random on my rides here. This is another way to make the rides feel alive. Rides, when they don't have some sort of velocity changes, are going to sound very, very, very static. So I highly suggest doing this for any rides you're doing in MIDI. A lot of the time when you're using a ride loop, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to have some sort of velocity change already in there. So if you're doing it in MIDI for your rides, I would absolutely suggest throwing on add some random. It'll add some variety to the velocity here. But yeah, guys, this is something that definitely goes under the radar in terms of drum mixing. But I think it's one of those things that turns boring drums into alive drums. And the reason, like I explained before, is this is what's humanizing our drums. If we have the same hi-hat hitting at the same volume every single time, it's going to sound like a computer made it. But if we have some things hitting at different volumes at different times, and it's sort of this ever-changing listening experience, then they're going to sound more alive. And at the end of the day, that's something that's going to take your song, whatever genre it is, if it's house music, if it's hip hop, whatever it is, it's going to add a lot of life to the song. It's going to make those drums feel alive, and it will definitely add a lot to your end product. So yeah, guys, this has been Aiden Mix and Mastering here. Again, this has been sort of like a shorter video here, but I think this is an important one for making those drums really stick out and making them unique. If you have any questions about anything I used in this process, please let me know, and I'll be happy to share them in the comments below. But yeah, guys, this has been Aiden Mix and Mastering, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.